My name is Haley Bean, and you are watching an HD Reads Review Halloween special. As you can see, I got my chat. I got a little buddy over here that's holding a letter from the author we're going to talk about today. And I don't know if you can see them. I got some skeleton hands somewhere around here. I also got a cat around here. She might jump up at some point. You know, I don't see. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the bone houses. I'm just going to premise this now. Good book. um, if you are looking at the cover now, and if you've seen this book out in the wild, you may notice that my cover looks differently than the original cover. Actually, I'm going to show the original cover is black underneath the skeleton, whereas mine is white. Um, a reason for that is that I have a book subscription box that I get every month called Outcrate. I'll put a link down in the description. And I highly recommend Outcrate. They always have such cool goodies, like this Harry Potter cup that I'm drinking out of right now was an Outcrate gift. The tea that I am drinking was an Outcrate special, and I ended up buying more because it is so good, and I am not a huge tea drinker, but this is absolutely delicious. I'm not going to spill on camera, I promise. And every box will come with a newly printed book, usually the YA genre, and will be signed by the author, and usually will always have a letter from the author. So this is actually an Outcrate special. Every book in Outcrate has a special edition, like cover, an exclusive cover, and this one's mine. Which honestly I think is so much better than the regular one. Regular one's cool looking. Don't get me wrong; it's really cool. It's really cool where it has like the black and everything, but I just think the white is like. Um, okay, so I'm gonna format this one. I am going to read the author bio and the book summary, and then I'm just gonna go straight into my thoughts. And I have some thoughts, and honestly, I only really have one critique, and it's kind of a phony critique. It's not real. It's more personal preference, or more of just me kind of like whining. So let's go ahead and get this started. All right. So let's see. What should I do first? Should I do the summary first? Should I do the author first? Let's do the author first. And I'm not going to read the letter that she included. Right. I'm just having it on display because I think it's cool. And she drew a picture of her favorite character, which is a goat. That is the favorite character in her book. And honestly, it's kind of my favorite character too, so I totally understand that. But I'm not going to read the author letter. Like, subscribe to Outcrates if you want the author letters, because to me they're kind of like personal. But we'll go ahead and read the bio on the author. Emily Lloyd-Jones. Lloyd-Jones is hyphenated. Emily Lloyd-Jones grew up on a vineyard in Royal, Oregon, where she played in evergreen forests and learned to fear sheep. Yeah, that's fair. After graduating from Western Oregon University with an English degree, she enrolled in the publishing program at Rosemont College, just outside Philadelphia. She currently resides in Northern California with a temperamental cat and an ever-increasing book collection. I'm not in Royal California, but I can relate to the rest. She is the author of Elusive, Deceptive, The Hearts Be Sold, and the historical fantasy horror novel, The Bone Houses. I'll include all of her website and everything like that in the end. This is a new release. I want to say this released like last month, maybe, or maybe it was either August or September 2019. So it is a very new release. Not that I can't talk about Outcrate enough, but that is one of the great things about Outcrate is that it always will be a new release. So let's go ahead and talk or go over the summary of this book. I gotta like brush my hair out of my eyes to read. Oh yeah, I got like a cool Bone Houses bookmark with this one. It's pretty neat. I used it the entire time I was reading it. 17-year-old Ren cares about only two things: her family and her family's graveyard. And right now, both are in dire straits. Since the death of their parents, Ren and her siblings have been scraping together a meager existence as gravediggers in the remote village of Cauldron, which sits at the foot of a harsh and deadly mountain range that was once home to the Fae. The problem with being a gravedigger in Cauldron, though, is that the dead don't always stay dead. The risen corpses are known as bone houses, and legend says that they are the result of an old curse. When Ellis, an apprentice mapmaker with mysterious past, arrives in town, the bone houses attack with a new ferocity. What is it that draws them near? And more importantly, how can they be stopped for good? Together, Ellis and Ren embark on a journey that will take them into the heart of the mountains, where they will have to face both the curse and the deeply buried truths about themselves. Equal parts classic horror novel and original fairy tale, the Bone Houses will have you spellbound from the very first page. Now you see why I picked this for my Halloween special. Um, so it's when it comes to genre, it is YA. It's got a spooky element to it, but it's not scary. So if you're not much of a fan of horror because you're afraid, kind of a scaredy cat. Because I'll be honest, I don't like horror movies or anything like that. This is a good book because it has the paranormal effects to it, but it's not going to leave you with nightmares. Um, so let's go ahead. I guess I'll just get started. Um, so we'll go ahead and you know what? I just kind of want to get my one critique out of the way. And like I said, it's not much of a critique. Um, my one critique is that this is singular. This book, you can tell just by reading it, is going to be it. There's no series or anything. In my personal preference, I love series. And this book is so good. The author did such a great job with developing her characters that honestly, I wish this was a series so I could see how much farther they go. Um, Personally, my only critique, it really isn't much of a critique, is that there isn't more after this. But I guess the good thing is that I do get to go find the author's rest of her work and read that because honestly, she is such a good author that I do want to read more of her stuff. Um, but that's my really one critique. I have been scratching my brain for weeks trying to figure out, what will I say in this video? And I'm like, I have plenty of good things. I can't think of any critiques. I can't think of anything bad, honestly. Um, Other than the fact that it is singular. It is just this. It's not part of the series, which, like I said, I mean, that's a personal preference. I like series. But I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to commit to a series. I'll just read one and done. And if that's you, then disregard this critique. Otherwise, that's it. That's all I have to say bad about this book. I don't say bad. Critiques aren't bad. They're just room for improvement. This really doesn't have room for improvement. This is just good. So we'll go ahead and go into my praises. I have been able to work on these, but these came pretty easily to me. So we'll go to praise number one, which is, oh wait, I have an idea. You gonna help me out here? Whoop! Cool. So, praise number one is that it is fantasy, not sci-fi. So this is, by all accounts, I'm going to put you right over there so I stop fidgeting with it. This is, by all accounts, a zombie story. It's unique, it's interesting. It actually is doing it on this very specific mythology, which I'll get to that later. But it is a zombie story. And when it comes to that, I guess my thing with zombie stories is that they're kind of cliche, you know? You have zombie stories that are almost always post-apocalyptic or current, just apocalyptic. Um, you have them a dystopia. They're usually sci-fi, where they are about the zombie outbreak starting from a single virus or anything like that that's spread across humans or what have you and created different zombies. And not that that can't be good. I'm just feeling a little bored with it. That is a very, very common um, storyline to it. And you could do it well, I guess. You could have interesting characters and everything. But to me, the whole post apocalyptic thing, I'm just like, okay. I feel like I've heard this song before. It's nothing new. Um, so the idea that the Bone Houses isn't a apocalyptic zombie story, but is actually uh, the like a fantasy and it works with mythology and it is zombies, but it takes place in another world. It has like this whole mythology to it. The zombies are not caused by disease but caused by a curse. I appreciate that. I appreciate a zombie story that is actually a fantasy and not a sci-fi. And maybe that's just because I prefer fantasy over sci-fi. And I have nothing against sci-fi, really. It's just usually the terminology goes over my head. When it comes to zombie sci-fis, they're almost always par for the course. This is unique. This is interesting. This is basically looking outside the box, doing a zombie story that's, fantasy. Um, and I really appreciate that. So that is my first praise right there. Okay, so praise number two. I'm going to say it's called Breaking the Norm. So if I gave you descriptions of two characters, and I said that one character was male and one character was female, and I gave you the description, and I had to tell you or ask you which one was male, which one was female. Well, let me go ahead. One character is a gravedigger, very physically strong, stubborn, protective of their family, really wants to uphold the family, traditions and structure and everything like that. And just a little bit fiery, but they can still be very respectful too. The other character, the map maker, very intelligent, well educated, kind of coy, um, kind of proper and everything. Grew up knowing their manners and all that. Very physically weak. In fact, the gravedigger often has to rescue them. Then again, they kind of rescue each other. So, if I were to give you those descriptions and say which one's male, which one's female, you most likely would say, "Oh, the gravedigger is the male, and the map maker is the female." Why? Because the gravedigger is a strong physical one who's stubborn, whereas the map maker is intelligent and polite but weak, feminine. It's actually the opposite. This book kind of flipped the gender stereotype. They made the female character a gravedigger, and she's not just like she's a gravedigger, and she's proud of it. She's constantly described as having dirt underneath her fingernails. There's never a scene where she gets really dressed up and cleaned up and going to a dance or a ball or whatever, and the guy sees her for the first time and suddenly he's like, wow, you know? She who she is. She is a gravedigger. And I really appreciate that. The map maker, he's physically, not very strong. He actually has an injury on his, I think it was his left shoulder, so he can't really do much. And he even says that he doesn't want to be pitied. He doesn't want people to think that they can fix him or anything. He's tired of it. He just, it's something that he bears and he deals with, and he's okay with that. So the gender stereotype is flipped, and they're okay that it's flipped. They're never once ashamed that they are the opposite of what you would think they should be. Mm, I love that tea. So that I think is probably one of my number one praises right there. The third praise I think kind of goes back to my first. It's that the first I said that it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, not sci-fi, and it does cover a different, world and mythology and everything when it comes to basically zombies. But the other thing is that this is Welsh mythology, which I know nothing about. And maybe this is kind of more of a personal thing, just because I'm not unaware of anything when it comes to Welsh mythology, that I was intrigued by it. I've never really heard Welsh mythology. If I have, I don't know it. Um, so when it comes to being introduced to mythology that I'm unaware of and inexperienced with, I'm just more excited. I get to experience this whole other mystical world that I've never even heard of, and therefore I can't kind of, what's the term when it comes to reading? Metagaming, but reading version. Meta reading? You know how you know the mythology, so you could kind of figure out where the book's going because of it? I wasn't able to do that with the Dark Houses. And maybe that's just me. Maybe this praise is more of a personal thing than it is overall. I guess all my praises are technically. But really, the whole thing is that this is it covers a mythology that I have never been taught, that I've never really listened to or heard of before. So it was a surprise. I never read something to go, oh, I know that mythology, so this is probably what's going to happen. They're probably going to discover this or what have you. No, I had no clue. I was totally lost. So when it comes to this book, it covers a mythology that's, to me, new, which I think is exciting. It's basically introducing me to a whole fantasy world that I've never visited before, which is great. I love doing that. Take me away. So that would be another one of my praises. I honestly just want to look up more Welsh mythology and learn about it, and then reread this book and go, oh, that makes more sense now. Not that this book ever really left me with any confusion. It more just left me wanting to, I guess, educate myself on that mythology. There's a few side things and everything like that, they comment on, the main characters comment on, that to them is normal, so they never really explain it, they don't have to. So I want to look it up and go, okay, what are they talking about? And then revisit and go, oh, okay, I get it now, I'm in the loop. So that is my next praise. Okay, my other praise, building off of that, what I think is interesting is let's see, what do I call this one? I guess naive characters. That's what I'm gonna call this phrase. So there's this whole thing, and maybe I should have looked it up first before I start talking about it, because I might be twisting the story and everything like that. There was this old, like, this story from way back when, before they really knew much about medical or anything or anything like that. And people used to think that rotted fruit would, if you left alone, would rot and everything, would eventually turn into maggots, right? So they believed that food would turn into maggots, and that was just like their view on it. You leave rotted fruit out, and the next thing you know, you're looking at it, there's maggots all over. Like, oh, I guess the fruit got bad enough that it sprouted into maggots, and that was, I guess, normal thinking and conclusion. It was cause and effect. So then a scientist, and I wish I knew his name, and maybe I'll put it like here. Um, but a scientist said, that seems weird. So he did an experiment where he got these sealed jars, and these jars, and he put fruit in both of them, and he sealed one of the jars up. And over time, he watched it. One jar's open, the other one's sealed, and he watched them both as the fruit started rotting. And the one that was unsealed didn't started getting maggots all over it and flies. And then the one that was sealed, though it was rotting, it didn't have maggots over it. And he realized that it wasn't the fruit that was creating the maggots; it was the flies that were drawn to the fruit that were laying eggs that were maggots. And I think he eventually learned that the maggots are actually like coming from the flies, and he realized that there's a whole life cycle thing and everything like that. My point is this: you could come to certain conclusions by doing deductive reasoning that's cause and effect, right? And those conclusions are wrong. So when it comes to all of this, when it comes to bone houses, the character, or especially the main character, Fred, or one of them, I guess, she has lived in this village that's always had bone houses, these zombie skeleton creatures, the dead that's risen up. They've always existed in her life. But they've always kind of kept away. They've kept away in this enchanted forest and everything like that. So it was never something, was a problem until the story begins. And you find out why. So the thing is that she, all of her life, has come to certain conclusions about the bone houses. Like certain, I guess, guidelines or rules on how to deal with them. That they're affected by this thing, or that they never do this, or something like that. They're unable to do this, what have you. And as the book goes, and she goes on this adventure, she started learning that she was actually wrong about a few things. That the conclusion she came up with, they were actually because of something else. It was the fly in the fruit. She saw something, she came to a conclusion, going through her adventure and experiencing the bone houses more so, like, in face, in person, she realized that, oh, I was actually wrong about this. And that's actually pretty dangerous. During this adventure, these rules that she thought were so sturdy, they kind of aren't totally sturdy. So she starts questioning, first of all, her safety. Second of all, I guess morality, the whole other side to things, seeing things from a different perspective that she hadn't thought of before. So when it comes to this, I really like that the characters are kind of naive. They go through the book and they do learn things, and they do start coming up with different conclusions, or rather, just hypothesis and everything like that. They start going, oh, maybe actually I was wrong about this. Maybe it's actually this. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that these characters don't know. I appreciate that they are experiencing a very crazy paranormal / mythological / fantastical experience, and they don't know all the rules. They don't know where everything falls. I love that. The other thing is that, oh, I lost it. I had a thought. What was it? Oh, I got it. The other thing was that the characters at the end of the book still have a few questions. It's not so much that you're like, oh, we need a whole other book now. But no, seriously, we need a whole other book now. but it's like they don't have the, I guess, conclusion after everything. They don't have that closure. There are still a few things that they're wondering, like, whatever happened to this, or why did this happen? And it's not like, okay, I have to know this. It's more like you get to speculate. You get to say, like, okay, maybe this is what happened, and the author even suggests, like, maybe this is what happens. Maybe that it's her way of saying, this is actually what happens. But it's not set in stone. The characters don't know. And because this is a third-person narrative that is what is it called? There's a term for it where it's third person narrative and it's more focused on a character, so it's not a omnipotent narrator, it's more focused narrator. Skeleton, help me out. What was that term called? Ah, yes, thank you. Okay, so yeah, it's that. So my thing is that it's the characters are totally unreliable because they're human, you know. And I mean, they're young also too. I actually don't know if they ever specify their age. Might have, and I missed it. But they're human. They aren't going to know everything, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that the author did that. You know, the author said my characters are just as human as you. So guess what? You might want to know these answers. They do too, and they don't get them, which is tragic. But I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. So let's go into my next praise, which is it's possibly spoiler territory, but we're gonna have to bite the bullet. I'm sorry. My next praise is relationship building. So these characters, one male, one female, they already stated that they're proud of who they are and everything like that. They go on this adventure, Ren and Ellis. They go on this adventure together where they're traveling through this mountain and everything like that. Basically to find and break the curse of the bone houses. And they go on a whole bunch of stuff and they discover stuff and they start connecting and bonding. They go through a lot of near death experience. um, and they save each other time to time. I said the Gravedigger saves the Mapmaker more. Maybe that's just the way I remember it. I don't know if that's actually what's true. But they do save each other. When it comes to their relationship, because they just met before they go on this adventure. And they're going on this adventure for like they have their own reasons, right? Um, they start really connecting. Obviously, they rely on each other, you know, facing life and death, literal death. Um, but they start connecting and bonding, and there's something about their personalities that just click. Like they have a similar, I guess, sense of humor. You know, they're both pretty quick-witted, a little bit sarcastic and everything. Um, and they even dry humor, honestly, especially the Grave Digger. um, so their relationship or their personalities just kind of click into place. They fit, and going through everything as they do, they start noticing small things about themselves because the story flips between them. Like starts like it'll start the chapter focusing on Ren and what else she's thinking and going through and everything like that, and then it might flip a segment into Ellis and everything. Am I saying that right? Yeah, yeah. I just want to check. Um, so when it comes to that, you start seeing that the characters are noticing small things about each other, like how Ellis brushes his hair out of his eye all the time, or how Ren seems to hold herself and everything with her acts. They start noticing small little quirks about each other that they seem to admire, and that slowly starts developing where Ren might casually, like, she'll put her hand on Ellis's wrist, like, ask him, like, are you okay, or whatever, and butterflies are suddenly in his stomach. He suddenly has a hard time breathing because she's, touching him. And honestly, interestingly enough, Ellis starts having those emotions first. In my opinion, reading it seems like Ellis, um, he started getting those butterflies and everything like that way before Ren did, which I think is interesting. That person, I mean, Ellis is more of a romantic, you know? Ren, not much of a romantic. She's mainly focusing on her family. Um, and Ellis just starts becoming somebody that she starts caring about and becomes protective as well. Uh, so um, when it comes to like how they start noticing each other, Ellis seems to be a little bit more. I don't know. He seems to start his emotions first. Either way, as the story goes, they do eventually kiss, and they do kind of admit feelings for each other, right? And this isn't really much of a spoiler because from the very beginning, you know what's going to happen when it comes to those two. It wasn't surprising. Really, what was most surprising to me is how it developed. It developed very, you know what word for it, very realistically. You know, they're facing life and death. They're going on this whole adventure. Their personalities work, and they start noticing small things about each other. They start getting a little bit like nauseous and nervous and yet excited when they accidentally graze hands or what have you. The idea of the other one caring about them made them like feel good. So that is realistic. And what I also love, I wish I could talk to Emily in person about this because I've read books and we've all seen movies and everything where the guy and girl um, fall in love in a matter of days, right? And that's what they call it. They call it love, right? Um, you know, the Disney Princess Mall. Um, I don't know if you can hear my cat meow. But when it comes to this book, though Ellis and Ren do get together, they never once call it love. They said that they really liked each other. They said that they admired each other. They said that they would miss each other if they had that their paths separated or what have you. They never once call it love. They never say I love you. There's never that moment where one's hanging off the cliff and the other one's trying to pull him up, and the one hanging off the cliff is like I love you, and then tries to let go. There's never that. And I love that. I love it when the relationship's realistic. Like this is a real relationship. You know, this is something I can totally see happening in everyday life. You know, this is how it's supposed to be. They develop very small, very subtle, and it starts growing more and more. It snowballs. But even still, in a matter of days, they still don't call it love. They may have emotions for each other. They have feelings, and that's fine. They never once call it love, and I love that. Ha! A joke. Um, so I really appreciate Emily Lloyd-Jones for not doing the Disney Princess Mom.